Make a wish, Harry.
Sorry about that.
So the movie gets the green light,
Mhm.
moves forward. They make the decisions on who's playing what. We've got our director, and they announce the production start date.
Mhm.
Where's Bill Daly when that announcement comes down? I know where
I'm
I was. Where were you?
I'm probably in my office next door to your boss. Although Carol wasn't your boss.
No, but I had looked at her as my boss. She
Yeah.
definitely had authority in that camp, and she was
Yeah.
actually very good at what she
She's
did.
great. She's great. I wish I
Yeah.
could have hired her.
Back to Harry Potter. So the production starts. What was the first thing you saw on it? What was the first time you were in? Were you in dailies at all for this?
Yeah, every day. The very first day of dailies were owls landing on the Privet Drive sign, and that's not where the movie opens. The movie you have the whole opening of the movie, which we're going to go through, and once
Were you distressed? Were you distressed to see that? Were you like, what do we have a whole day spent on owls? Were you worried about that, or were you okay?
No, they needed real owls and they were on a real street. Privet
Mhm.
Drive eventually was built on the back lot at Leavesden Studios, but in the first film, it's a real street out in London, somewhere in Surrey, and I believe, and it was a real place. So
Mhm.
here's a production unit on one of the most talked about movies of the millennium. Honest to God. I mean, it was one of the most talked about, highly anticipated. They couldn't go too many places without drawing attention to themselves. So we're on this suburban looking street. Everybody knows what it looks like. And they had owls because the owls were delivering the letters to Harry. And so the very first day of production, we were getting owls from the
Mhm.
owl wrangler, and they were landing on on the thing.
All right. So
Don't
you're
ask me what the second day was because I don't remember. They all blend together. I mean, we eventually you see everything in pieces, but I do remember the first day of shooting.
all right. So a special moment for Harry Potter fans here. Former Warner Brothers senior VP Bill Daly is about to take us through the opening of the film. Or how do you want to do this? You want to show the storyboards sequence, or do you want to show put it together? You're the executive.
Well, just to refresh everybody's memory, why don't we look at a little bit of the beginning, and then we'll look at how that was conceptualized through the storyboards. And just so people know, the storyboards, every film, the storyboards are different. And even within a film, different storyboard artists have a different way of rendering what the scene should be as described to them. So these storyboards are in black and white. They're not in color. It looks very much like a comic book. And they'll get a sense of what it was that how we envisioned this movie before we show up on the location. Now, things change when you're on location. You know, somehow maybe this angle works better or that. And it's shot from multiple angles. So the storyboard probably is what the artists envisioned the director would put out, probably, you know. So let's look at, we won't look at all of it. We'll look at a little bit of the beginning, and then we'll go back and look at the storyboards, and you can see how this sort of evolved. Okay.
I should have known that you would be here. Professor McGonagall?
Good evening, Professor Dumbledore. Are the rumors true, Albus?
I'm afraid so, Professor. The good and the bad.
And the boy?
Hagrid is bringing him.
Do you think it wise to trust Hagrid with something as important as this?
Ah, Professor, I would trust Hagrid with my life.
Professor Dumbledore, sir. Professor McGonagall.
No problems, I trust, Hagrid?
No, sir. Little Tyke fell asleep just as we were flying over Bristol. Try not to wake him. There you go.
Albus, do you really think it's safe? Leaving him with these people. I've watched them all day. They're the worst sort of muggles imaginable. They really are.
The only family he has.
This boy will be famous. There won't be a child in our world who doesn't know his name.
Exactly. He's far better off growing up away from all of that. Until he is ready. There, Hagrid. It's not really goodbye after all. Good luck, Harry Potter.
Let me share the screen again, and we're going to go to the storyboards. So here we are. This is the very first panel of the storyboard for the opening of the movie. You'll see it's outlined. The first one is it's a rectangle, but it's sort of higher than it is wider, and that's to show the entire scene. You'll see it's nighttime. It's a suburban street somehow. It looks kind of weird here. It looks like there's benches, but I don't know what that's all about. But you see the moon, you see the dark sky, you see birds. Those are supposed to be owls flying across. And then to the right of the frame, you'll see tilt. You'll see an arrow, and it says tilt. So the camera is tilting down. So the actual movie we saw started with Privet Drive. But here we have establishing that it's nighttime, that it's in a suburban neighborhood, the camera tilting down. And then finally here, the second panel, you'll see it's more the shape of the movie screen that this movie went out in scope 2.35 to 1. And then page 2, we pick up Dumbledore, which we established originally that we just saw. We saw Privet Drive, and then we saw the darkness, and then we saw Dumbledore coming out of the darkness. So we already get a sense that the movies don't always fully match what the storyboards are. But this is how the beginning of the film was imagined. So here you have Dumbledore. He has the deluminator. The top comes up on it. It's shaped differently. It's part of his cane or walking stick here, but it's a separate instrument when they finally did it in the movie. I guess there was a lot of talk with the prop department about how exactly they were going to do this. Close up on Dumbledore, back to the deluminator. It's going after the lights, and then you'll see there's a description under the top panel, wide set extension shot as he continues to put out lamps into the distance. 1, 2, and this basically describes 3, what we saw, although the picture doesn't 4. Exactly match what we saw. And then we see his dialogue here. I should have known We didn't previously see the cat in the storyboards, but we did in the movie. I should have known, and then we see the cat, and then it's Professor McGonagall. Now, originally, I thought this was a really cool idea to see her shadow. You know, she
Yeah.
starts out as a cat, and then you see her shadow. It's sort of like those Michael Curtiz movies that he used to do in the late 30s, like specifically Robin Hood, where they would be they'd be fencing across the set, and they'd get close to a lamp, and you'd see the big shadows up.
Right.
I thought this was really cool, but somehow they got talked into doing visual effects, and so they created the whole idea of the cat turning into Professor McGonagall. I should have known. So this is where we left off with the movie. So shall we go back to the movie?
Yeah, let's bounce back. Oh, this is taking me back. This was one of the first big projects when I started at Warner Brothers that we had in production.
We saw Professor McGonagall and Professor Dumbledore talking. And they're turning. See the right here where my cursor is, you can see it's directing the camera to go with them. And then they're turning around in these arrows. And here comes Hagrid. And you can see this is pretty much laid out like a comic book.
Yeah.
You know, I don't remember. We just saw the scene. I don't recall seeing Hagrid's point of view as he was coming down. I think the camera had pretty much was focused on the motorcycle coming out of the sky onto the road.
Explain to the audience why the images are this size.
You mean because the shape or
Yeah.
just the size?
Just the size and shape.
Well,
like why?
the shape is because it matches what the movie screen, the dimensions of the movie screen, because this was shot, it was actually shot Super 35 and matted for scope. So that's a whole different sort of discussion that I don't want to get into, because I would, and that would take 20 minutes. This is so that we have a sense of what the movie itself is going to look like with these scenes. Now, the actual storyboards, these are all paper sized because they were distributed to the studio. There's a cover page that we didn't show, but the cover page listed all the different people it was going to. Now, the storyboards change over time as well. Now, these are white pages, but there are blue, green, yellow, and pink pages with changes as well. So as they change these things, they will change these as the script changes. And whenever a script is changed, they put out different colored pages so that everybody knows it's different page. And you could go through the entire rainbow of pages just before the movie starts shooting. And then as it's about to shoot, it'll go back to white paper, and they call it the final shooting script. And then changes that are made after that, then they reinitiate the color changes and everything. But most of these storyboard changes are happening before production even starts. They aid everybody in being able to visualize exactly what's going on, but it helps with the director and the DP making up shot lists. You need to show up. We talked about on Apocalypse Now how they didn't have a schedule for things. Well, you need to show up with shot lists too.
Yeah.
And the shot lists are reflected on the cost sheet, or the not the cost sheet, the call sheet. What their goals are for the day are listed on the call sheet. And if they don't make all their work, that gets reflected on the production report that goes out at the end of the day. And the production report will list hours, and all kinds of financial information is gleaned from the production report. And I tell anybody who's going to write a book about a project, the making of a certain movie, get the call sheets, but more importantly, get the production reports, because that tells you what they actually accomplished,
Right.
and where the compromises were made, and any injuries are listed there. If a portion of the set catches fire, that'll be listed there. and then additional insurance reports for all those eventualities too. But this aids in creating your shot lists, and you need to show up on a set with shot lists. They don't always do that in Europe. Some European directors, I fired a director on Duffy's Cut who came to the set without shot lists. No, I didn't fire him on the spot.
Was it for that reason he was fired?
Well, no, not that was
That
one of
just
the
added
major.
to
That
it.
was one of the major ones, because the other producer and I wondered what movie set this guy had been on before. You know, what was his experience? We knew that he was experienced, you know, and he was actually working in some real high-profile TV projects in the UK and in Ireland. But he showed up without shot lists. And I told him that he needed shot lists. We needed to be able to plan what we were doing. We needed to have stuff reflected on the cost reports. Now, what we shot on Duffy's Cut, we didn't shoot the movie. We shot a presentation to make the movie. And we were able to get a lot of information about crew and everything else that we could use in making the movie. So, but the fact that he showed up without shot lists was a mortal sin, absolutely a mortal sin for us. And the two producers, me and Patrick McDade, have been in this business collectively, have been in this business for a century. Okay, we know what we're doing, and we communicated our expectations, and they weren't met. And he eventually departed. Well, I departed too. I left the project. Although the door is still open for me to return, I left the project, and my very last thing was to dismiss the director, because he wasn't following any of the instructions, didn't do shot list, didn't follow our suggestions. That in itself is not a mortal sin, but there were things that concerned us when we were shooting, and then when he delivered his director's cut, we gave him notes, and he wouldn't address our notes. And so we determined, well, that's the end of that. We know that we can't work with this guy. If 3 days was impossible, then 4 weeks is going to be a nightmare. So anyway, I digress. But you need this to create your shot lists. So here we are.
The shot list is created from the boards.
Yes.
And at what point did you see these storyboards?
I don't remember. This went out. I just don't remember. Let me. We've gotten to Hagrid is turning the baby over to Dumbledore. That's where we stopped.
Right. Okay. So you guys get these storyboards. You start going through them. Production starts. No problems on production, right? That you can really recall. Nothing serious during the first film.
No, the only thing that interrupted any kind of production was that Dan Radcliffe had an allergic reaction, some sort of physical reaction to the. We gave him contact lenses because J.K. Rowling was very, very specific about Dan having black hair and green eyes, which is a very unusual combination in nature. And Dan has the bluest eyes, bluer than mine, bluer than my shirt here. Okay.
Right.
So they thought about, okay, what are we going to do with his eyes? They tried contact lenses. He had a reaction to that. So that sort of interfered a little bit. And then they thought, well, maybe we'll just go into post-production. When we were in post, visual effects, we'll just color his eyes. And then there was a discussion about that, and everybody determined, the kid has blue eyes. So what? We just won't mention about the green eyes. The fans will get over it. They'll get used to the.
Did they get over it?
As far as I know, I never heard anybody. I did hear people talking about it when the first movie came out, but after that, the movie was done. What are you going to do? So it's if you're on live television and there's a blip, everybody goes, "What was that?" And then they forget about it. They move on. So,
This takes me back to that classic Bill Daly discussion we had about Costner as Robin Hood, where he's famously said, Well, we've already got their money, so by the time they complain, who cares? Classic executive thinking right there. And I'm thinking, well, no, we want ticket 2, ticket 3. We want these guys to see this movie 3 or 4 times. But anyway, yeah, I don't think they would or they wouldn't based on the Costner accent. So I get what you're saying about his eyes, but Radcliffe, he was good to work with on this, if I remember the stories right.
They were all great. Everybody was great.
Your road to redemption is paved with tombstones. No quarter, kill all masters. Go to noquarterkillallmasters.com. Rated R.